Welcome to First and Future Live. I'm Leslie Boney with the Institute for Emerging Issues, and we're glad to have you join us today for the fourth in a four-part series on North Carolina's historically Black colleges and universities. This is part of a larger program that we do that looks at the people and places and priorities and programs that are shaping the future of North Carolina. And we try every other week to have a conversation with some of the people who are leading the thinking about how we move forward as the state of North Carolina. This fourth part in our four-part series with HBCUs is a series that we've been doing over the past 8 weeks. We started with an interview with Chancellor Harold Martin, the largest HBCU in the country, our public land grant, North Carolina A&T State University. Then we talked to the presidents of two of the most historic private historically Black colleges and universities in North Carolina, Shaw University and Bennett College. Last time, we talked about the Northeastern North Carolina HBCU, Elizabeth City State University, and we talked with Kulweep Radat, the head of their aviation school, and the Chancellor, Dr. Carrie Dixon. This week, we're talking with the Chancellor of North Carolina Central University, Dr. Johnson Akinleye, and a little bit later with Dr. Deepak Kumar, the director of the Julius Chambers Biomedical and Biotechnology Research Institute at NC Central. In all cases, we're looking at the history of these places, their present, and looking ahead to the future, where they're going from here. Just to give you some context, North Carolina has more HBCUs and more HBCU students than any other state in the country. And you can see, you look at a map where these places are located across North Carolina, starting down in Charlotte with Johnson C. Smith. If you go up I-85, you'll head toward the Triad area, passing Livingstone College, get to the Triad where we have 3 different HBCUs, another cluster in the Triangle area, then in southeastern North Carolina, Fayetteville State, and in northeastern North Carolina, Elizabeth City State. And these places play a critical role in the communities that they live in, whether it's Charlotte or Salisbury or Winston-Salem or Greensboro or Durham or Raleigh or Fayetteville or Elizabeth City. These are places that are a critical part of the cultural and educational and economic lives of their communities and of the state. This particular show is focused on North Carolina Central University, the first liberal arts institution that was publicly funded in the nation, specifically with the charge of educating African Americans. We thank all of you that are joining us on Facebook Live or YouTube or on tape or through a podcast app. If you're watching live, please send in your questions and we will get to as many as possible. But let's get right to our principal guest, Dr. Johnson Akinleye, the Chancellor of NC Central University. Dr. Akinleye, welcome.
Thank you so much, Leslie. Good to see you.
Glad to see you again. You just had graduation this past weekend. How did it go? And what are you looking forward to about the fall?
Thank you very much. The graduation went very well. We had originally scheduled 2 commencement exercises, one on Friday the 7th for the graduate and professional schools, that's the law school, and then, of course, the undergraduate degree for Saturday, May 8th. Unfortunately, it rained on Friday, so we had to move the graduate and professional seminar our commencement to 12 o'clock on Saturday. So we had 2 major exercises on Saturday, and they both went very well. The commencement also invited students who graduated in May of 2020 and December of 2020 who were not able to participate in a live commencement exercise to come back and participate in the first live commencement since COVID. And they came and it was quite a celebration.
We talk about pivots, and it used to be we would pivot, once a month or so. There would be or once a year, there might be a big pivot that we do, but I feel like we're sort of on a permanent pivot right now. And so doing something as radical as changing a graduation must be old hat to you by now with all the adjustments you've been having to make.
Well, I think you said it right. Pivoting, realignment, being able to be flexible. I think these are things that we've all learned very well as a result of the COVID. And I think it is good. As an institution of this size, especially nowadays with the changing dynamics in the nation, all of us must learn to be flexible and to be able to move on a dime. And so we've done that, and we've done those things very well, particularly last year when we had to move all of our courses and face-to-face courses to online within 2 weeks. We did this, but we did it very well. The students, initially, it was a bit difficult for them, but they transitioned well as well. And then we have a good infrastructure on campus that was able to assist us in doing that, not just for the students, but for the faculty. We have a very sophisticated Office of E-Learning on campus that was able to assist all of our faculty members in transitioning their courses, as well as the students, to online. So it worked very well. In fact, we didn't lose any ground at all when it comes to enrollment. That was something that we all had feared, but really did not pan through.
Nationally, we've been seeing declines in enrollment overall. There's been a slightly larger decline among African Americans and a slightly larger decline among African American males. And yet, Central has been able to hold the line on that and even increase slightly. What is it that you've done, or what is it you think about your message that is maybe working that isn't resonating with other people across the country?
Well, thank you so much, Les. Well, the first thing is our students are looking for a wholesome experience and a wholesome academic experience. Simply being on campus and being able to interact with their faculty and their peers is something that they really do cherish. So yes, while some institutions were losing enrollment, we actually gained roughly a percentage point. Our total head count came to 8,011, which was a slight increase from where we were last year. So the full, rich academics experience is really what our students enjoy. That to be able to have that interaction and the campus life experience here on campus brought them back to campus. One of the things that our students it's unique about our students is that they come from areas where the facilities and the environment that we provide on campus are not always available. For instance, the broadband, where they are on campus, they have access to broadband technology, internet, things that may be slightly difficult in the areas where they come from. So when they come to campus, they do have access to all of those items that makes their experience on campus more rewarding and more unique. So yes, we gained enrollment, and this summer, as we move into the summer, in fact, our enrollment is much higher than where we were this time of last year. So students are still coming back, and they're still looking for that rich, vibrant experience.
I wanted to talk to you about one of the things that you did right when you came in as Chancellor, and that was to unveil something you called the Eagle Promise. And this was from 2017, but it's really interesting to me how much more relevant it's become during time of COVID. And I just wanted to show what the Eagle Promise is and then ask you about some of the elements of it. So you talked about being job ready as a critical value that you're going to add to the students that you have for success in the global marketplace. You talked about improving four-year graduation rates, increasing the amount of engagement that students had, and developing strong leadership skills. Can you maybe just take those one at a time and talk, first of all, about being job ready for success in the global marketplace? It sounds like every one of those words was chosen carefully.
Absolutely. And thank you for highlighting those four premises for our student success here at NCCU. When I came in, we were looking for what is it that we need to do beyond the academic preparation? What would add value to the education of our students? And the first thing we thought of is, okay, what is the ultimate outcome that we're looking for? When you give a student a diploma, what is next? Now, as you well know, the workforce requires more than just having a 4-point GPA. And that's good. They want to see you become a successful graduate. But the workforce requires more than that. They want you to have all of the soft skills. They want you to have leadership skills. And these are the things that we wanted to do to be sure that, once you receive that diploma, you're not going back home to your parents and to your, former room. You are going into the workforce right away. So we try to instill the skills in our students while they are matriculating on campus. That these are the things that you need to do. One, you need to make sure that you engage in internship, field experiences, career sessions, things that would enhance your academic degree and that will make you to be more attractive to those employers when you get out there. And so these are skills and values that we've infused into our academic programs across the campus with the career services, working very closely with the advisement center and making sure that these students, while they're here, were able to secure all of those opportunities that, make them to be more readily attractive to employers when they get out there. So that's our number one goal. And if you're not going to be going straight into the workforce, we want you to be ready to engage in a professional school or graduate school. And so that's why we say you need to be work ready. And we do all of the things that we need to do both inside and outside of the classroom through co-curricular activities to be sure that our students are marketable and they can gain their first job as soon as they leave college. That's number one. And number two, we also live in a sort of a global society. Many of our students would come out and go to work for Fortune 500 companies, 100, and these companies are worldwide. We want to be sure that they can maintain their presence on not just the local stage, but as well as the national and international stages. Again, we try to infuse into our curriculum skills that will make them to be able to do those things when they graduate. We call that, leadership skills, soft skills that people are looking for, regardless of what your major or your discipline is. And that's really very important to us. So those four premises, we want the students to know that when they come in here, when we say, what is the Eagle Promise? They know what it is right away. I need to graduate in 4 years. Okay, if you must graduate in 4 years, what are the things that you need to do? Well, you have to go to all summer schools. That's number one. You have to take at least 15 credit hours per semester if you must do that. If you take less than 15 hours per semester, it's going to take you more than 4 years. So these are things that we instill in them naturally as soon as they come in. Look, if you must finish in 4 years, these are the steps that you must take. Every semester, you must pre-register, talk to advisors, get the right courses, take more than 15 hours, and make sure that you pass all those courses, as well as go to summer school. If you can do those things, you will come out in 4 years.
One of the most important measures that we've seen, I think, come out over the past few years is a measure called social mobility. And it's basically a look at where someone starts and where they end up, so that you see that some people who might come in from a lower income level, they come out and they have jobs that transport them to a new income level. And North Carolina Central is ranked, at least most recent thing I saw was number 4 in the South for a regional college in terms of transporting someone from where they start to where they end up. It's a huge part of what we promise people in education is supposed to be about, is that you will be transformed, not just economically, but in some other ways. And so it seems like the Eagle Promise is a good way of summarizing that commitment.
Absolutely. And in the history of North Carolina Central University over a century now, this is what this institution has done very well. And that's why we call it the Eagle Promise. We just repackaged it. This is what Dr. Shepard had in mind when he established the school in 1910. And what is he going to do? Preparing students for real service to the nation, giving them the sound character and the academic training to be able to do that. And so, as we know, it doesn't really matter where you come from, even though most of our students are students who are from low social economic class, from rural areas, in most cases, first generation college student. They come in with that, but that should not stop them if in fact we prepare them very well. And NCCU has done that so much. We are here to help to transform the lives of the students. And when you look out there, when you look within the alumni base, you will discover that we have alumni in all walks of life, whether it's in government, whether it's in the private industry, whether it is in the legislature. We've prepared students, and they've been very successful into that upward social mobility in our society, and we continue to do that today. So that's what we package again there, that we call the Eagle Promise. It's a promise that we've been giving to our students for 100 years, and we simply just repackage it and again present it to the current generation of students. That's been our mission, and I think we are doing very well in that area.
You mentioned raising up leaders, and a little bit later we can look at some of your alums that that have come out of NC Central. But one of the things you do that is unusual for all colleges and universities across North Carolina is, for a long time, you've had a public service requirement, and that's part of the Eagle Promise at all. Right at the center of the Eagle Promise is this idea that you will do community service, you will learn community service. And I just wanted to look at what the elements of that are. It's a requirement of 15 hours, not like student credit hours, but 15 total hours per semester per student. That adds up to a lot of service in the Durham community and beyond, a number of service learning courses, and some national recognition for you for the work that you've done. Why is that an important part of the Eagle Promise?
Well, as you well know, the motto of NCCU is truth and service. That has been part of our mission since inception, since founding, truth and service. So how do we do that? We are so proud that we are, in fact, the very first public institution within the state to require that our students complete those 120 clock hours of community service. And we've been doing that now for 25 years, as a matter of fact. What it does is really say to our students, while you have this academic degree, what other good can you do to society? How do you take that diploma and use it to benefit the humankind? How do you use that to benefit your neighbors? How do you use that to do good in society? And so by so doing, we ask our students that, okay, public service is something that is noble. While you are here, you must demonstrate that you are working towards that goal. Our students have participated in Habitat for Humanity. They've raised money and helped people build homes. And you know exactly what that means. When you are helping people to become homeowners, you then understand the value of living in a society where people take pride in owning homes. They've gone down to homeless shelters to work there to help people, to feed those who are less fortunate. They've gone to various places in our society to demonstrate that they understand the value of service to their community and to the nation. So that's really an integral part of our mission here at NCCU, and we're proud that our students are embracing that, and we're way beyond their matriculation here at NCCU.
Like a lot of universities, the NCCU that you see depends on which angle you're looking at it from, and it's sort of a multifaceted gem. Some people see the public service program that you were just talking about. Some people see the amazing evening law school that you've been doing for so many years. Other people hear about your great School of Library and Information Sciences, but I wanted to bring on one of the leaders of NC Central who works on one of the things that's absolutely going to be most important to our future, and it's eminently important in our present. And That is Dr. Deepak Kumar, who is head of the BBRI program, which is the Julius Chambers Biomedical and Biotechnical Research Institute at NC Central. And Dr. Kumar, you've been working in this field for a long time. You and I did another program this past summer where we talked about racial disparities in health outcomes. But NC Central has really taken on biotechnology as a special emphasis, and undeniably it is critical to the future of the state and the country. Can you talk about why you think biotechnology is so important and why NC Central has been putting such an emphasis on both growing the workforce and doing the research that fuels the future?
Thank you, Leslie, and thank you for having me. I think our chancellor at that time, Julius Chambers, back in 1998 and a little before that, I mean, he had the vision and he realized that there are a lot of disparities that existed at that time, and there were not many people who were doing these kind of research. We did not have enough representation of underrepresented minorities in STEM fields, especially in biotechnology. And so he had the vision that what better way than engaging minorities and underrepresented groups in STEM research and biotechnology research than having a standalone institute at an HBCU. And that's how in 1998, this institute was created, which I'm honored to lead, which is Julius L. Chambers Biomedical Biotechnology Research Institute. And this institute was developed with the focus of conducting health disparities research, but also to prepare minority researchers, because he was of an opinion, and which is very true even today, that unless we have enough representation, enough minority researchers, it would be very hard to make a dent in health disparities research and achieve health equity. I think that was the whole focus, and engaging students in medical biotechnology, biomedical, biobehavioral research. I think his idea was to really bring students from the very beginning in experiential learning, preparing them to become cutting-edge researchers, and that's what we have been able to follow. In the last 20 years, we have made a lot of progress. We have prepared several researchers, provided training to a lot of students, and we have developed a lot of research infrastructure at NCCU and findings in 4 areas of research through BBRI, which are in cardiometabolic research, cancer research, neuroscience of drug abuse research, and also in nutrition. Very recently, we have also launched a new program called as HOPE, which is taking these evidence-based interventions that are developed in labs or in population-based settings, but take these interventions to the communities where they are really needed. So taking the research to the bedside, but also taking the research to the curbside, and helping people and making sure that these disparities and chronic diseases are addressed, where people are.
One of the things we talked about last summer, and I was just looking at the latest numbers on it, had to do with health disparities related to COVID. And looking at the time, last summer, we were talking about the disparate outcomes. A disproportionate percentage of African Americans were contracting COVID, disproportionate percentage of Latinx members of our community were contracting COVID, disproportionate percentage of African Americans were dying as a result of COVID. And as we look at vaccination right now, we see that vaccination rates for African Americans in North Carolina, about 17% of the vaccines, whereas African Americans constitute about 22% of our population. So under vaccinating right now in the African American community. Can you talk a little bit about maybe what Central has learned, because you've had real success in keeping the numbers down on campus, and I'm guessing there's something that you've learned that might be helpful as North Carolina tries to increase the percentage of folks deciding to get those vaccines.
Absolutely. We started very early, and I just have to give kudos to our chancellor, Akinleye, over here. he realized very early, and we were talking very early last year when the numbers started coming, that there were a lot of disparities in COVID incidents and the way people are getting affected because of not being able to socially distance. And I mean, COVID was not equal for everyone. And taking prevention measures, and a lot of underlying conditions that are existing in certain groups. So we addressed that by creating a new center, which was ACCORD, which was Advanced Center for COVID-19 related Disparities. And through the ACCORD program since last July, we were able to, what we did was we started collecting data, because what we wanted to inform agencies and decision-making bodies that this is the data that you have to consider if you're making any decision about whether COVID management or the upcoming vaccination. And we started collecting data on what is the vaccine hesitancy back in July, when the reports were started coming in that yes, AstraZeneca is doing, Pfizer is doing the trial, and Moderna is doing the trial, and there was a lot of hesitancy, and we noticed a great degree of hesitancy in African Americans, followed by Latinx and the whites. But the hesitancy was with everyone. Fast forward, we did notice back in November when reports started coming in from Pfizer and Moderna about outstanding efficacy about this. About the vaccines, the hesitancy did start declining, but it didn't decline that much in African American population. And we started looking at reasons in terms of, okay, what are the reasons? Trust was the main issue at that time. And if you remember, the timing was like that. I mean, there was so much unrest in the country at that time against certain groups. That was one. We were having election. We were in the middle of the election. We were not sure about a lot of things. There was so much distrust. And prevention measures were politically motivated at that time about COVID. So all those things started building like a trust issue in certain population, like, okay, whether it's a good thing or not. A little bit forward, when the vaccine was rolled out, new administration came, NCDHHS started doing such an amazing job initially in terms of making sure that the vaccine reaches rural communities. We also partnered with our Health and Human Services and provided them with the data. Because again, our focus was to provide them with the data, and our data showed that people wanted vaccine close to home. People wanted vaccination measures or vaccination promotion by people who look like them. People wanted vaccination measures to be implemented by individuals who work in the community. So community health workers program that Health and Human Services implemented. And they started doing vaccinations very close to their home. Transportation was a very big issue at that time. And we were very nimble, and we were modifying our survey based on what was happening in the community. For example, December 18th, I remember correctly, the vaccine was approved, and December 19th, we launched a new survey in terms of, okay, what is happening with the new vaccine. Then Johnson & Johnson vaccine came, and then we started a survey on one-shot versus the two-shot vaccine. So again, nimbleness was a very important thing that we adopted through ACCORD. So we have been collecting data, and then we started a vaccination clinic at Central, and Chancellor can and tell you like how successful it has been. What we want is we want individuals to feel comfortable in coming to vaccination sites. We have given vaccine over 3,700 vaccines to our staff and faculty and students, but also to the local community. So that's what the contribution we are trying to make as a community engaged institution of people.
Chancellor, let me ask you about that, because trust is something that Dr. Kumar mentioned several times. And part of what you're doing through NC Central is graduating more and more people who are working in the research field, who are going to be able to be the faces that look familiar, that are trusted by folks that are currently getting under-vaccinated or have past concerns about the way healthcare has been delivered. And I was looking at some numbers before this program, and it's over the past year, 4,600 new jobs have been announced in the Triangle, with $4 billion worth of investment just since 2020. And those are huge numbers of jobs, and that's just in the biotech area. And right. So the role that Central is playing in training up these future biotechnologists and scientists is going to be essential for the success not just of working against COVID, but also in enabling our area to continue to be successful economically.
Absolutely. I think you, in addition to some of the things that Dr. Kumar just said, part of our strategy here at NCCU is to make sure that we're not only contributing to the nation, but we want to contribute to the workforce right here in the Racial Triangle, in the state, and that we are preparing students who are able to do that. We have been looking at our curriculum. We want to be sure that we have the right degree programs that prepare students for the skills that these employers are looking for. So you talk about biopharmaceutical industry. We're doing very well in that area. But we're also looking at clinical research, for instance. And so when we have the biggest clinical research farm here behind our institution, IQVA, we decided that, look, we need to create a degree in clinical research. And we went to work and we put that program in place so that, we can train students. And we can also partner with this clinical research firm to provide, pipeline internship opportunity for our students so that upon graduation, they go straight and work for this organization. So we'll look at, first of all, our portfolio. That's number one. What new skills, what new programs, what new degrees we need to bring in. I'm happy to say to you that in the last year, we've created a number of degree programs now that would do just what you've described. A Bachelor of Science in Biomedical Sciences is a new program that we've just put in place. Bachelor of Science in Clinical Research, Bachelor of Science in Information Technology with emphasis in cybersecurity, data analysis, Bachelor of Science in Sports Medicine, Master of Education in Assistive Technology with visual impairment, Master of Science in Higher Education. So we are being strategic in terms of the programs that we're bringing to the place. We're looking at what is the need in the workforce in the next 20, 30 years, not just in North Carolina, but across the nation. I mean, if you were listening to the news, you will see the issues that we're having with cybersecurity, that the ransomware, it's a huge problem now. So in our School of Business, with the help of a private firm, we just established a cybersecurity space, a lab space over there, so that, we can prepare our students with the right skills that will get them into that workforce as soon as they graduate. And we're not finished yet. We're looking at our co-curricula, as I mentioned to you, even things that they do outside of the classroom. We want all of these to enhance, their readiness when they go into the workforce. Yeah, the question of trust for us, as Dr. Kumar mentioned, is we are here in this city, and we want to be people to realize that, look, we are an economic engine here. We want to help to transform the lives of those people who live around us here. When you go back to the COVID vaccination, once we heard that, schools can become vaccination centers, I charged our folks. I said, look, we need to apply to become a center, not just for our students, but for the surrounding community. We live in a heavily populated African-American community. And if trust is a question, if we have a clinic on our campus here, and we are saying that this stuff is safe, come onto the campus and get your vaccination. And of course, people would go, as Dr. Kumar mentioned, they want to see people who look like them in this area. That trust is there. And so I'm so proud that through our vaccination center and through the work that Accord is doing, we've been able to really, really impact, this community, our faculty, our staff, and our students. And we see that as part of the mission of this institution, to help the state, to help the community where we reside, and then, of course, ultimately to help our students to transform their lives. And that's exactly what we've been doing.
One of the big issues that universities across the country are struggling with right now is this idea of persistence. And particularly in the sciences, you find that a lot of people start off in the sciences and then it gets hard and they get discouraged and they move over to another field. And I'm wondering, from both of your standpoints, maybe Dr. Kumar, the students you see in the lab, and Dr. Akinleye, as you look at overall students at Central, how is it that you convince people that it's worth it to get through the pain and suffering of the science when it gets hard. And I just mentioned I'm part of a consortium that's just beginning to talk about a grant that would try to increase the persistence and immediate employment of African Americans who are coming through the sciences, and wondering what ideas you guys have discovered that maybe, particularly being at an HBCU, what's the role of being in an environment that where you're surrounded by folks who look like you in increasing persistence?
I think the first thing that we do as an institution here is to show our students and our community that we care. All right, mentoring is so important. We partner with K through 12 institutions. We are the biggest, NCCU is the biggest producer of teachers for the Durham Public School. That's our neighbor. I talk to the superintendent all the time. We are the number one producer of teacher education program for this county. And so we need to have a partnership that doesn't start when the students get to us, particularly in the STEM discipline that you're talking about. We partner with K through 12. We have a high school on our campus here, and we develop a year-long mentoring program. And we have advisors, faculty advisors that actually look at the students and their performances and their progression all across. We have a program in the GSK STEM program, Women in STEM. And so we have various type of focuses where we try to say to the students, well, you can do this, and then give them not just the classroom work, but outside classroom mentoring. I think is very important. And then we have to have other programs. For instance, on our campus here, we have the largest Fab Lab, the Fabrication Lab, in partnership with MIT. Why do we do that? We want students who are not even in STEM to come into the Fabrication Lab and become easily attracted by playing around and working with technology and discovering that it's not that quite difficult if you take the fear away from it. We have summer programs here that we do with middle high school kids in STEM. And so it's going to take the community, our faculty, to say, look, we need to recruit students of color into the STEM discipline. And I think we're doing a great job. Through our partnership with GSK, we have produced so many students now who have gone on to various other aspects of the STEM program. Dr. Kumar, you might have other students in your program as well that you are paying particular attention to.
I agree. And Leslie, going back to what Dr. Akinleye has said about playing with, providing them with a platform, providing them with a playing field is so important. Inquiry-based learning is not about preparing scientists only. It is about preparing informed citizens. Science is also about informed citizenry. And this pandemic, if nothing else, has shown us that how important it is to have informed citizens. So science is, I think, more than about preparing only scientists. It is also about preparing informed citizens and giving inquiry-based learning approaches, providing experiential learning that NCCU is doing, and with the public service. You really provide such a holistic experience for the students. That's so important once they graduate and go out in the field. So I just would like to add that. So I mean, I think we have to look at this from a wider view.
Yeah, I think mentoring is so important because, as you well know, most of the African American students that we bring in come, in most cases, very deficient in the STEM area, the mathematics and the sciences. And so that's why we have to start with a partnership with K through 12 to be sure that we are providing the right teachers, the right skills. We don't want to wait until they come to us. And so with that partnership, we work with them and bring those students in. And then we have summer programs for them, a mentorship program for them, and actually monitor them all through their matriculation. If you didn't do very well, what do you need to do in terms of our advisement? How do we help you? It requires some time and some attention. And I think it can be done. It can be done. We have a lot of private partners now who are giving us funds and assistance to be able to bring in those programs that would assist those students to be successful in those very STEM disciplines.
We welcome your questions. If you have questions about North Carolina Central on any level, we've been talking about science and education, but obviously there's a lot more to NC Central than that. You can see over Chancellor Akinleye's left shoulder, his eagle wings. There's a long history of pride in the athletics program,
Absolutely.
marching band, and other parts of NC Central. If you have questions, we'd love to know what they are, and you have a great opportunity to talk to two people who really know it. Chancellor Akinleye, while we're waiting on that, can you just talk a little bit about your perspective? So we talk about NC Central as an historically Black college and university. That does not mean it is exclusively Black, but a number of the students there are African Americans. You are an African who has become an American, and most of your education in higher education has come through HBCUs in other parts of the country. You went to Alabama A&M, you got your doctorate at Howard.
Absolutely.
As a student, what was it that attracted you to HBCUs?
Well, I think that's a very, very good question. First of all, you can come to our campus and you would not mistake who we are by designation. We are an African American institution, but we are also very diverse. If you look at our faculty rank, you will find professors of all races in our faculty rank, as well as in our student rank. So we do have a high percentage of diversity. But I think the most important thing that we do on our campus, really to prepare students, is to say to them that, look, you can be successful. You can be successful. I am a proud graduate of 2 HBCUs and an African born. And if I can come to this country, educated by 2 great HBCUs, and can attain the position that I am, what we're simply saying to the students is that you can do it despite any odds that you may face. And what HBCUs have done very well is that we've been able to take students from where they come, regardless of their circumstance, regardless of their condition, bring them in, nurture them, and then prepare them to be successful. And we've done those things very well. So HBCU is more than just an educational institution. It is a place where we bring students in, and then we educate, as was said earlier, the entire student, a holistic education. If you miss the class, if you don't come to class, there is a professor that is going to know that you were not in class, and then we seek you out. If you didn't show up in the Career Advancement Center, there is a person there who is going to know you or know and give you a call. So you're more than just a number. And so we provide that environment that supports, the success of our students. And we really pride ourselves in doing that. And people say, well, yeah, what's your mission? Well, our mission is not just to be an HBCU. That we've demonstrated and that we can do that. But our mission is also to produce students with quality, students who can compete anywhere in the world with any students who might have graduated from any school. So I say that to people all the time. That is our number one mission. Our number one mission is to prepare students who can be successful, but who can compete with anyone from any institution. And we just happen to be,
We have a question about NC Central's role in the civil rights movement, and I'd like to just add to that a little bit what the last year has been like for you. We're on the morning before the family of Andrew Brown Jr. in Elizabeth City is going to see the body cam photos, body cam videotape. Can you talk a little bit about how NC Central views its role as a civil rights leader? And maybe while we're doing that, we could show some of the alums that you have that have come through NC Central. Maynard Jackson, the former mayor of Atlanta.
Yes.
Dr. William Barber, who's been spending a lot of time in Elizabeth City recently.
The former governor of the state. Right. The former governor of the state.
Mike Easley.
Honorable Michelle. We have so many leaders that we have produced out of this institution and that we continue to produce. That is been the strength of NCCU, producing leaders and sending them out there and having them to contribute to, our nation. And we continue to do that. We have one of the best law schools in the land. Leslie, it's so important because people look at NCCU as a liberal arts institution. Yet we are a liberal arts institution, but we also do a great deal of research. As you have heard, in the 2 research centers that we have, and of course in our science areas. Right now we have grants to look at the driverless cars and things like that, and the new technology. And as I mentioned to you earlier here, we are creating new programs in all of these areas. In robotics, we have a program in that particular area right now to make sure that, our students have the right skills to graduate and become leaders in this area. So it's just what we do. We are more than just an HBCU. We are a quality institution that has been contributing to this area over the last century, and will continue to do that.
We've touched on some of these things before, but I just wanted to show a slide that provides a summary of at least some of the different facets of NC Central, and it gets at that alumni question as well. We talked about the founding of the school way back in 1910 as the first publicly funded liberal arts school for African Americans in the country, high ranking in U.S. News and World Report among all the HBCUs in the country. We've been looking at the BBRI program, also alluded to the BRIGHT program, this combination of research and workforce development. You've talked about the evening law school. You mentioned one of your alums, one of many alums, is former North Carolina Governor Mike Easley. We talked about social mobility, your School of Library Sciences, and in addition to some of the other politicians that I mentioned, Congressman Eva Clayton, the former congressman from the 1st District of North Carolina, the former House Speaker in North Carolina, and now Senator Dan Blue, the Majority Leader. Just an incredible array of folks who have come through your school and now are making a difference in North Carolina, and thousands of others that you may not have heard of, but you mentioned earlier the people who are going into the Durham public schools and teaching and leading. So that heritage is a really important of who and what you are. And I'm wondering, maybe as you, Tony mentions Tuskegee Airman pilot that came through, the president of North Carolina Railroad, Scott Saylor. There's kind of an endless supply of those. But as you look forward to the future, what do you want people to think about the NCCU maybe 5 years from now or 10 years from now?
That's a very, very good question. And I would take that question back to the question that most people normally ask, to see how and what is the future of HBCUs and specifically NCCU. People would say, look, are HBCUs relevant? Do we still need the existence of HBCUs now that we have students who can go into any institutions across the country? And the answer to that question is, for me personally, HBCUs no longer have to demonstrate their relevance. That's been done by all of the stats that you just showed right there, Leslie, where people are. That relevance is there. These institutions have done what they were established to do, and even more. But the question for us is, what do we need to do for our institutions to keep them relevant moving into the future? And so when we talk about access, resources, opportunities for them that would continue to make them viable and the place where students can get all of that, that's what we need to focus on. How do we get funding for our institution to maintain, our infrastructure? How do we get funding to develop the best labs on our campus? How do we get funding to provide scholarship for those students who come from low-income homes who are in need of those scholarships so that they can achieve and realize that dream? How do we get the legislature to provide more money for our institution and to level the playing field that we have? So the question of relevance, we have already demonstrated. What we need to demonstrate moving forward is that our commitment to NCCU remains strong because of the things that we do. And I can tell you right now, when you look at our students compared to, say, students at other larger PWI institutions, there are some disparity, no doubt at all. The majority of our students are on Pell, which means there is a certain unmet needs that they have because of their socioeconomic status. And they will continue to need support. They will continue to need scholarship if we're going to make sure that they are successful. So that's one. And I'm so thankful that, right now we have a lot of industries, especially since we're having the conversation about racial equity and disparity and social justice. I hope that it is something that is going to last into the future. There are industries that are coming to the table now and say, look, if we haven't done this in the past, how can we help you now? We know the values of this institution. What do we need to do to ensure that, this institution remains strong and viable? And I can tell you, that's what we need, Leslie. Resources, resources so that we can continue to do what we do. I'm very happy that we are getting attention from state legislators, from the federal government, from private industries in terms of partnership, not just funding opportunities for internships, paid internships for our students, so that when they graduate, they have the opportunity to say, look, I worked for this company for 12 weeks while I was a student, and I have the experience, to get the first job. Those are the kind of things that we need to do to continue to strengthen, our students who are coming out of our schools.
Dr. Kumar, one of the things that's going to attract those companies onto campus, I think, is the opportunity to do meaningful research and have research partnerships. Is that at least part of the solution for HBCUs going forward? Is that collaboration and communication between private sector companies, federal funders, and people doing research on HBCU campuses?
Absolutely, and I want to echo leveling the playing field, as our Chancellor said, and we are looking forward to these partnerships. I mean, you mentioned about the investment that is being made in the Triangle area. We have we have Bright, which is focused on workforce development, and we are welcoming those kind of conversations, and companies are approaching. We are also reaching out to our neighboring institutions such as RTI, for example, in terms of expanding our research infrastructure so that we can partner more and more with companies. And that's the way to go. We all have to work together so that, and people have to recognize the resources and the recognition that we have attained and what we have contributed so far. I mean, you talked so much about, student success, research, doing so much for the community, so much contributions we have made, and we must be recognized and provided resources so we can continue to grow. Because unless we are able to do that, we won't be able to do this for long unless we have resources.
Dr. Kumar, Director of the BBRI Center, Dr. Johnson Akinleye, the Chancellor of North Carolina Central University. Thanks to you both for being with us. Really appreciate your talking with us. And it's really been our honor over the past 4 shows to be able to look at and talk about and think about the HBCUs in North Carolina. We've been able to visit with the leaders of 5 out of the 10. And during that time, we've heard some inspiring stories about how these schools have weathered the COVID-19 storm. We've seen how the schools have spoken out and shown leadership as we try to figure out how to move forward during tumultuous times, both in the past and in the present. We've heard about some of the unique strategies that HBCUs are finding to serve students who might be the first in their family to attend college, students from lower income families, the success that they're having in social mobility, helping people move from where they start to where they would like to get eventually. We've heard about the importance of focusing a message, really communicating directly what it is that HBCUs offer, what their value proposition is at this critical, important time when we're seeing a flattening of high school students. What's the competitive advantage that HBCUs have? And we've heard some about how HBCUs are responding to the needs of adult learners, people who maybe didn't get a four-year education when they were coming through that now understand the importance of it in today's environment. Our state is continuing to make progress in getting more and more people the education that they need to be successful, but the biggest gaps we still have in attainment are among African Americans, Native Americans, Latinos, and HBCUs are playing a critical role in ensuring that we continue to close those gaps and offer excellent education and real opportunity to everyone. Some of the 10 face real financial challenges right now and going forward. The pandemic has been hard for everybody in higher education, but these schools, which typically have lower endowments, have less margin for error. There are one-time gifts like the ones that Mackenzie Scott has given to North Carolina A&T and Elizabeth City State and Winston-Salem State. Those are important. There's some new support that's being considered by the UNC Board of Governors and the General Assembly for the public HBCUs, and alums continue to play an important role. There's discussion on a federal level about expanding Pell Grants. But as we look at all those things, we know that this conversation is going to need to be ongoing. So what you can see on the screen now is a new project that's being launched by a group of partners called Listening to the 10 historically Black colleges and universities in North Carolina. The partners include CREED out of Charlotte, the Center for Racial Equity and Education, EdNC, the Hunt Institute, My Future NC, and you can see a URL on the screen and in the show notes, creed-nc.org/the-NC10. And that's a place where they're going to be collecting stories about what HBCUs are doing and what they mean to North Carolina. So we hope you'll follow that. That's again, creed-nc.org/the-NC10. So please go there. You can take a survey, share your story about what HBCUs mean to you and to the state. That's our show for today. Thank you for joining us. This is the fourth in a four-part series on HBCUs, and leadership on this series has been provided by our Director of Communications, Greg Hedgepeth. James Herrick is the executive producer of First and Future Live. Kirsten Chang helps get the word out about the show and keeps the chat going. Renee Potts helps with our slides. We had research assistance this week from Simone Coleman. Coming up on our next show, we're going to have a visit with the Superintendent of Public Instruction in North Carolina, Dr. Catherine Truitt. And we're going to talk about one of the issues of most concern to people in North Carolina right now, learning loss. What has happened during COVID and what do we do about it? We'll also be talking with the Reverend Dawn Baldwin Gibson, who's the superintendent of the Pelletas Center for Excellence, about what learning loss and making up for it looks like on the ground. So we ask that you join us for that. Thanks to everybody for joining us. If you like the show, we hope you'll tell a friend about it. We'll be posting a video of the show on our YouTube channel in a couple of days. There's also going to be audio on our website, emergingissues.org, for this and all past shows. We hope you'll join us in 2 weeks for that show with about learning loss in education. Following that, we're going to be focusing on small business in North Carolina on our June 5th show. So thanks to all of you for joining us today. I'm Leslie Boney. For all of us at the Institute for Emerging Issues at NC State, appreciate your being with us. We'll see you in the future.